Clip 113, multiplication and division with surds. So we've done a couple of clips on surds now. So the key part is to recognise what a surd is. So surds are based around the square numbers. So when you're doing any questions on surds, it's good practice to write down the first few square numbers. So you know that if any of these numbers come up, you square root it, you go back to the a number. So for example, root 36 will go back to 6. So once you've done a few, we'll get up to 100, then we'll start the first one. So the two main rules for multiplication and division. That's the one for multiplication. That means the square root of something times the square root of something else can be written as the square root of those two numbers times together. So if I give you an example, let's say we've got root 5 times root 4. That would be the same as root 20. So that's the first rule. The second rule, which is root a over root b, that is if I take the square root of a number and divide it by the square root of a different number. So for example, if I said root 100 over root 4, that is the same as the square root of just those two numbers divided by each other. So 100 over 4. Now the key thing is, can you be able to simplify these down? So 100 divided by 4 is 25, so this becomes the root of 25. And this is where your square numbers come in. Does that mean anything? Root 25 is 5. Okay, so once you've got these rules in your head, the more practice you do with surds, the better you will get at them. It's a grade 7 upwards topic. Okay, right, let's look at the first one. So root 12 times root 3. Well, we know, based on this rule, root a times root b equals root ab. So if I times these two together, that is the same as the square root of those two numbers times together. So that is 12 times 3, which we know is root 36. Then can you simplify that down further? So at this stage we're looking at just square numbers going down from a square number. Later on clips this week we'll be looking at, can you change, for example, root 20 into something simpler. So what's root 36? Well, let's go to our square numbers. That's the 6th square number, so that means root 36 is 6. So root 12 times root 3, the answer is 6. Next one, root 4 times root 16. Well, we know root 4 times root 16 is the same as root of 4 times 16. Well, we know 4 times 16 is 64. Right, is that a square number? Yeah, it is, we know that. That is 8. Now, there's another way you could do this one. If you can recognise root 4 and root 16, they are actually square numbers. Root 4 is 2. Root 16 is 4. 2 4s are 8. So there's two ways of doing that question. Next one. Root 2 times root 32. Well, we know that's the same as the root of 2 times 32, which is root 64, which comes out the same as the answer before, is 8. Okay, so that's a few questions on multiplication. So let's have a look at a couple on division. So the first one, root 40 divided by root 10. So what do we say up here? The rule is the square root of a number divided by the square root of another number is the same as the square root of two numbers on top of each other. So we've got root 40 divided by root 10. So we know, using the rules for surds and division, that's the same as square root of 40 over 10. Well, 40 over 10 is 4. And then do we know what the square root of 4 is? Well, it's a square number, it's a second square number, so that is just 2. Next one, using the same rule, square root of 162 over square root of 2. That can be written as the square root of 162 over 2. And what's 162 divided by 2? Well, 160 divided by 2 is 80, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. root 81. Is that a square number? Yes, it is. That is 9. So this simplifies down to 9. Right, so the next few, number 6. So root 48 over root 3 is the same as square root of 48 divided by 3. Well, 48 divided by 3. Well, let's do 3 into 4 goes once, carry over, 3 into 18 goes 6 times. So that's root 16. And we know what root 16 is, that's just 4. Right, next one. These last two are a little bit trickier. So this one, when you multiply fractions, this isn't a fraction, so we're going to make it one. What do you do to fractions when you multiply? You times the top times the bottom. So the top will be root 75, the bottom will be root 48. Well, that now looks like this. So we can change that to square root of 75 over 48. Right, can we simplify down 75 over 48? Well, it goes in once, and what's left over? 27. Well, let's try and do it just using cancelling. Let's divide by 3, top and bottom, see what we get. Well, 3 goes into 75, 25 times, and 3 goes into 48, 16 times. So it's the square root of 25 over 16. Well, we know what root 25 is, don't we? That's 5. And we know what the square root of 16 is, that's 4. So that's it, the answer, done. So sometimes for the harder questions, you might get it as a fraction, and then if you can spot the square numbers there, you square top, square bottom. Sorry, square root top, square root bottom. Number 8. Well, root 27 over root 12. That's the same as saying square root of 27 over 12. Well, can I cancel that down again? Well, I can. It's divided by 3. Top and bottom. What do I get? Well, 27 divided by 3 is 9. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. So once again, square numbers. Can I cancel down? Sorry, square root 9, yeah, that's 3. Can I square root 4? Yeah, that's 2. So the answer is 3 over 2. Now, I understand this is difficult. There's a lot of other practice questions that if you want to just practice these basic ones, this is can you turn them when they go into just whole square numbers at the end, and you can square root that answer to get a whole number. The ones that are going to come up next are the ones like this, which is the root 20. That's going to be the, further on in the clips.